Is this on? Oh, it is. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. I'm David Cunningham, the Executive Director of the Ogunquit Museum of American Art, and I am thrilled to welcome you all here to the Leavitt this afternoon for a conversation around Looking for America, which is a remarkable exhibition that is currently on view at the Ogunquit Museum of American Art just down the road. If you have not been to see the exhibition yet, I highly encourage you to come. It is truly fantastic. In her curatorial introduction on Bloomberg Connects, co-curator Kalia Brooks describes Hank Willis Thomas at his core as a community builder. That's an idea that is central to our thinking as well at the museum. How do we become a true resource for this community, especially for young people? Our goal is that every kid and family from Boston to Portland sees the Ogunquit Museum as their museum. That is truly a goal that we are working towards, and I hope that we get there. Over the past year, we've made meaningful progress towards that goal. We've increased student engagement at the museum by 300%. Through our school bus fund and open doors programs, we now offer free transportation and free admission to all school groups. So if there are any teachers here tonight or you know a teacher, please let us know. Call Sophie Corduroy at the museum. She will organize the trip, and that includes teachers, students, as many chaperones as they want to come. So it's really a fantastic program. We have also extended free admission for veterans and their families. That program grew from 51 veterans coming the year before we initiated that program to over 1,100 people coming for free to the museum. So we're very proud of that. We have also increased free art classes, and with the support of Art Bridges and the Wolf Kahn Foundation, have also extended the reach and ambition of our OMAA Conversations series, which is why we're here tonight. At the museum, we tap out at around 80 people max for a talk. So this is a lot more, so thanks to those foundations for helping us with that. This new partnership with the Leavitt is also part of that effort as well, to bring these conversations downtown Ogunquit and past the museum walls. That is something that, as I said, we really want to become much more a part of this community. I love this in particular, this partnership, because the Leavitt is one of my favorite places. If you are not familiar with the Leavitt, please make yourselves more familiar with it. It's super fun. Come join me here on Saturday night for the Ballroom Thieves at 7 o'clock. I hope you'll also come back for June 22nd. We have Cara Romero who will be here as part of our OMAA Conversation series. So please do that, and please come visit us at the museum. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Devon Zimmerman, who will introduce tonight's speaker and our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you all for coming out. It is such a joy to, again, be working with the Leavitt and having a more expansive space for us to fill. I also am so grateful for our panelists, but also for all the artists, friends, community members to come and make their way to Southern Maine. It is such a treat to see us all gathering, especially after such a long winter. I'm from Southern California. I wasn't built for this, so to see this warmth return and this energy back in Ogunquit and Southern Maine is filling me back up with a bit of energy that I desperately needed. We're here tonight for the exhibition Looking for America, which brings into dialogue the work of Hank Willis Thomas and a multi-generational group of artists connected through years of shared studio space, conversation, and collaboration. Rather than offering a singular vision of the nation, the exhibition unfolds as a collective inquiry, one shaped by dialogue, proximity, and exchange. Across media and perspectives, the artists ask how America is seen, remembered, and imagined, suggesting that America is not a fixed place or a singular story, but an ongoing search. And this afternoon we'll begin that search with a wonderful and incredible panelists who I'd like to invite out on stage now. Round of applause. So I get the wonderful joy while mics are being passed out for just brief introductions of the old bio reads. First and wonderfully is Helen Banach, who is an artist, an art historian, and a co-curator on the exhibition, whose work bridges public art, research, and collaborative practice. Since joining the studio of Hank Willis Thomas in 2016, she has been a key collaborator on many projects, including the 36-city national tour of In Search of the Truth. She's also the co-founder of Art Production Partners and maintains her own public art practice while working between New York and Wyoming. To her left is Chris Bernsten, is a New Orleans and New York-based artist whose photography and time-based media explores queerness, intimacy, and temporality. His work has been exhibited at MoMA PS1 and the Ogden Museum of Southern Art and the Contemporary Arts Center in New Orleans. Bernsten received his BFA from the New York University Tisch School of the Arts and later pursued his MFA at Hunter College. And then we have Andina Marie Osorio, is an artist based in Brooklyn whose practice explores memory, identity, migration, queer affect, and Black femme sexual politics through assemblage, self-portraiture, and archival research. Her work has been exhibited at venues including the recently opened exhibit Fade at the Studio Museum in Harlem, and featured in publications such as Elephant Magazine and Muse Magazine. A graduate of the Yale School of Art, she's received support from Aperture and participated in residencies including the Center for Photography at Woodstock and the Fire Island Artist Residency. And then finally, Hector Membreno-Canales is an artist, educator, and researcher based in Massachusetts, whose work draws from photography, public service, and cultural history. He is the Francis C. Robertson Chair of Visual Studies and Photography at Phillips Academy, Andover, and a lecturer in the ACT program at MIT. Before his artistic career, he served for more than a decade as a U.S. Army Public Affairs officer. His work has been exhibited internationally at venues including Aperture Foundation and PhotoFest, and featured in publications including the New York Times and the Boston Globe. So let's give it a good round of applause for our incredible panel. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Devon, and thank you to the Ogunquit Museum of American Art for having us here today. I so appreciate being able to start with the verbal version of this introduction, and then what I would like to start with is being able to look at the work that each of you have in the show, and I would love to hear more about that. Hopefully we would all love to hear more about that, and then also how this work ties into your larger practice. So if we can see the first slide, we'll remember who's starting. Who will it be? I think it's Chris. Was I right?
Next slide.
Una más? Yes, it is.
Okay. That's me. Hi, everyone. So glad you're here. This piece is titled For Chip, who is the more familiar name for a great sci-fi and history writer, Samuel Delany, born and raised in New York City, and he wrote a really great memoir called The Motion of Light and Water, which is just the greatest title for anything ever. And in it, he discusses the light kind of rising on the Hudson River after spending the evening in the meatpacking district. And that just really kind of sparked this thought of using cyanotype to kind of expand, flatten, and modify and kind of blur boundaries of time and space. So this piece is really thinking a lot about the waterfronts of New York City specifically, and how those times can both feel timeless and unique to each of their own things. So put that all together, and how much should I talk about this piece? I like to talk, but...
Time is a construct, so it's really hard to say.
Thank you. We've all gone to grad school.
Nor can I see a clock. When discussing this format, we said for this introductory portion, maybe keep it to 5 minutes or less, but that includes your other slides.
Oh, yeah, let's
So,
keep going.
we can keep going.
You can see that in person. And there it is, installed, with that amazing gilded gold frame. And I'm right next to one of my favorite Hank Willis Thomas pieces. Let's go to the next one. See, these are some other things. I love the cyanotype process, but I really just love collage. Collage for me is a thing that we'll talk about it more, but I feel like with Hank's practice, it's just this fused kind of conversation that bleed together. So this is another way of thinking about time. This is a photograph at Reese Beach in Far Rockaway, Queens. It's been a historically gay beach since the 40s, if not earlier. And so this was a photograph that someone took in the 50s, Richard Peckinpah. I love archives, they're the coolest things. So I restaged this photograph 50 years later, 60 years later with a friend. So thinking about being in the same exact place 50 years later and what's different, what is still lingering, thinking about that. And because I love this beach so much, this is an entire collage dedicated to my love of the queer waterfront and all of its possibilities and lack of restrictions. And next slide, I think that's it? That's it, okay.
Okay, that's me up there. So this is a piece from a project I've been working on about the United Fruit Company. So I was born in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, and I immigrated to the United States in 1992. I come from generations of banana plantation workers, and I started to investigate that diaspora. The United Fruit Company just seemed like such a rich vehicle to explore a shared history, but then also my own personal history. What I've also included in this photo montage are current and historic photographs that deal with issues of immigration and also trade as it relates to agriculture, the United Fruit Company. This is just one part of a larger body, but this is the work that is included in this show. And, I'm reflecting back on my own time in Hank's studio and just thinking about how he was able, or is able, to look at archives and pull out through lines from things that happened in the past and that continue to affect us now. And, that's something that I have brought into my own studio practice. Next slide. And again, there it is, and appropriately geographically put next to a wonderful map, as it were. Next slide. Great. So these are some works. When I was asked to share other works for this slide deck, I wasn't sure if I should go into the past or into the future, so I've included some older work and some newer work. So the photo on the left is a photograph I made around the time that I was working in Hank's studio. This work is titled The Horn of Africa. It comes from a portrait and still life series that I made toward the end of my undergrad. And I went to the School of Visual Arts in New York on the GI Bill. And I came home from Iraq, and about 60 days later was living in New York City. And I was a 22-year-old college freshman and really felt like a fish out of water. And I thought I was the only person that was experiencing that, but I then met a community of other veterans who were also studying art on the GI Bill. And we were, studying the typical art history, photo history classes. And I had to make work. And it seemed really appropriate to start asking my classmates to start participating in my studio practice. So I started asking other veterans to come into the studio and make photographs. And we were looking at history paintings, and then also asking other veterans if they could bring in some of the things that they carried in their service. And this was the first photo I made from that series, and it felt like the first time I really made art. And the project continued after that, but it was such just that experience. I don't know if you can relate to it, I'm sure. That first time you make an artwork and it surprises you. So that's what that work is on the left. And then, well, I guess stage right, maybe your left. And then over here, we have a still life from that United Fruit Company project. And I made a list of fruits and vegetables that are native to Central America. And then I asked my wife to help me make some still lives. So the spirit of collaboration continues even outside of school. So we drove all around Greater Boston with a list of fruits and veggies that are native to Central America that we purchased and then assembled, brought into the studio. We can see the banana leaves. It's a little hard to see in the projector, but these fruits are laid across banana leaves. So that's a little bit about those projects. And I think that might be my last slide.
So if we can see the next slide to confirm that, please.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well done.
I have two bodies of work in the show. The first being one of these like sculptural boxes that I form. This one being called "To Whom Do I Owe the Woman That I Have Become," which is a title from Zammy, the New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde, which is a really wonderful kind of biographical kind of fiction novel that she wrote, being a young queer person in New York that I relate to very, very heavily, and thinking about when I was making this work, thinking about the through lines within the archives that I work with. So I work within my family archive, and then I have like a personal kind of queer archive that I've been doing since 2018, just about like my queer life in New York. And I was thinking about how grateful and honored I am to have preserved this wonderful, extensive archive. My family archive goes back to, the oldest photo I have is from 1931, and being so grateful that I get to have photographs of my grandmother and my mom and all of my aunts when they were children to their teenage years, and then them as adults. And so I was thinking about that through line with making this work. I'm inspired by Iron Gate iconography, the like very diasporic nature of it, originating in places in South Africa and then coming to the Caribbean. You can find them in Cuba and Dominican Republic and in Puerto Rico, where my family's from, and then having that kind of carry over into vastly Caribbean populated areas like New York, Boston, certain places in LA, and it's kind of all around you. And for this particular one, was taken from, you can't really see it, but there's a pink photo up at the top, is a photograph of my mom as a child at her aunt's house in Puerto Rico, and it's the same kind of iconography. It's called a Sankofa, and the literal translation means "go back and get it," which has lots of meanings for me as a diasporic person about what going back and getting something is, and thinking about the great migration of Puerto Rican people through the 50s, 60s, 70s, coming to specifically New York. A family. My grandparents growing up, or my grandmother growing up in Washington Heights, and my mom growing up in the Bronx, and having a really specific kind of understanding of what America is, and then its relationship to Puerto Rico, which is a whole other thing. And so thinking about all those things with this work. And then the other work I have, one of my favorites, but it's a archival photograph that I have within my archive, and it depicts my mother, my uncle, and my grandparents, and this really wonderful kind of 70s red paneling that you would find in a lot of homes. And it's there's not too many photographs of them together, but this process was kind of born from my obsession and my eventual collaboration with honeybees. Very quickly, honeybees are technically animals, and honeybees specifically are all female. They live separate from male bees in a hive. They, live together, collaborate together. They share secrets. They dance in specific ways to communicate different things to each other. And I like to call it mimicking the matriarchy, because they have a lot of tendencies that mimic the way in which I grew up, with mostly women in my family. And for a really, really long time, it was like trying to find a through line with thinking about my archives and the process. And so basically, westernized beekeepers will have bees in like boxes, and then there'll be like different slats in between. And if you ever want to like merge a hive together, you would put a piece of newsprint between those two hives. So, and bees are super smart, and beekeepers are really good at like reading and understanding their behavior. And so if you ever want to merge them together, like you'll be able to like read the way that they're communicating with each other, if it's like a good match or if it's not. And so I printed my family archive on newsprint and left it in a hive for a few days. And so these like little tiny like rips and tears are the honeybees kind of like biting and ripping. They're not eating it, and it's like, it's cool because it's a collaboration with them, and it's really dependent on their labor to make this work. So, and then you can go to the next slide.
I just have to say real quick, I love that every time I've heard you talk about this practice, it's always been, they're not eating it. Because it does feel like, when we hear bite, right, this thought of consuming it, also this like consuming of the division, but instead this deconstruction of it. I think I always enjoy hearing you speak about it.
Yeah, because it's kind of an invasive thing in the hive, and so it's like I'm asking them to do more labor to make this work. So, yeah, and we can go to the next slide. Yeah, and here's some installs of them. And the next one. Yeah, and I just wanted to share like very, very early kind of concepts to both of these works. This on my left, this project started when I was an undergrad, and it's kind of going on 10 years old, and it was an assignment that I had in undergrad, and it was specifically something from nothing, and it was during the time when I was like collecting all of my archives, and I was like going through them, and I wasn't trying to like implement that into my practice like I do now, but I think I just wanted to have them and preserve them in a way that my family just did not. And so I was thinking a lot about like the idea of honey, and honey being something that's incredibly medicinal. It was used to, in like ancient times, it was used to like preserve bodies for like mummification. It doesn't go old, it doesn't go bad. It's, all these other things. And so it was having, family photos juxtaposed with honey, and then it took me a very, very long time to realize that it wasn't the honey that I was obsessed with, it was actually the honeybees. But that took almost 10 years and it went through many, many different rounds. It was like a sculpture for a while, and then what it ends up being now was actually supposed to just be a video work, and then the beekeeper, I'm really grateful to him, was kind of like, these are great, like, what? So that ended up being the artwork. And then the work to my right is a installation photo from my thesis at Yale Photo in 2024. Metal is like super important to me. Magnetized or galvanized substrates are really important to the work. And so for a while I was thinking about having these like different moments, kind of incorporating my family archive, my personal archive, with just the other kind of like formal portraiture that I was taking. And I had a bit of bee brain, and I was like thinking about like, when I was doing this, like thinking about them or making these different moments kind of up in a kind of hive-like shapes that I was thinking about, but it's very different. So that when I was doing this, you could get really close to the archives, and you could literally almost touch them. And then it changed when I started doing the boxes, because it ended up now becoming a barrier, and it's a much different way to engage with the work that I think works really well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I love how confident you are that you're like, this is the last slide for me. Yes.
That's it.
I can't remember if we have a nice little slide that we can switch to as we continue with conversations. No, giving it away for the next thing. Can we go back all the way to the first one as just something to have? Maybe the first one with all the artist names. Thank you so much. I really enjoy starting a panel like this with visuals as such a visual person, and also often hearing artists describe their artwork and not getting to see it. It's like hearing a delicious meal that you don't get to eat. It's mouth-watering and lovely, and I want the visuals. So thank you so much. So many points that I want to dive into. I think what I would like to start with, as I heard all of you speak, is how much the archive is so deeply a part of all of your practices. And I don't want to assume, but I feel like there is a love there for the archive. And so I would love to hear more about, when do you feel like you first fell in love with the archive or saw it as a collaborator with you in your practice? And what do you think the future of archives are? And I'm not going to call on someone, so you're going to have to choose amongst yourselves.
I'll go first. I love an archive. I said it earlier. The first time I went to an archive pertaining to my own work, a friend who's a historian said, hey, there's pictures of like Reese Beach, the gay beach that you love, in the LGBT Center archives in New York. Let's go, let's have an archive date. And I was just blown away, and I would never have taken that leap on my own, but I got there and I said, oh my God, wait, like gay liberation happened in 1969. Why are there pictures of people having fun in the 50s? I thought it was just like horrible until, June 19, and that's obviously a very silly narrative. And I loved this archive, and I wanted to use the images from the archive, but I felt like it was a little bit of an extractive approach for me, just to go in and rip out digitize them and take them away. So I negotiated with the archive. I can get in there on my own without the archivist there, and I'm allowed to scan the pictures. And I said, hey, I want to scan all 970 pictures in this Richard Peckinpah's archive. And you can use the scans, and I get to also use the scans. And then those people became my friends, and I met amazing people involved with Leslie Lohman Museum who are doing their own projects in the archive. Because when you meet another archive artist freak, you're like, I see what you're doing, It's not the same thing I'm doing, but you like to, sneeze a lot too. But you got to give the love back to the archive is the important thing. And of course, I'm of the perfect mindset to go in terms of the future of the archive, what's going to happen with all the digital archive? What are we doing with that? How do we preserve that? How do we make it frozen in time so it can't be AI'd out of existence? And I have no clue. I'm such an analog paper girl myself with that. So that's my thoughts on the archive.
I have to chime in real quick. That feeling of when you get left in the archive without the archivist.
With the white gloves.
It's like when you get to stay home by yourself without a babysitter for the first time. You're like, yeah.
Or if you're babysitting a baby and you're like, oh no, I'm gonna what if I hurt the baby? I don't know how to hold the baby properly.
Wear the gloves.
I don't want to ruin the archive. But we all get through it, right?
Yeah, I think for me, the archive is everything. It's kind of all I have, It's my whole thing. Yeah, for me, it really wasn't until recently I ever considered myself archivist, and I'm still kind of iffy about that because I feel like that's a really big title and really powerful thing to say and to hold. And I think for me, like, yeah, when I had started collecting all of it, like, it was really just from a standpoint of preservation, because it was like photo books were falling apart, and there were these like giant like Home Depot like 30-gallon tubs just like filled to the brim, and I was like, this is crazy. Yeah, and growing up, like, hearing and understanding a lot about my family, like, through this archive was kind of the only way that I could engage with it. And yeah, and just naturally, it kind of just, like, came into my lexicon, it came into my practice. But I think about the Her Story Archive a lot in New York, which is essentially like a database, an archive that is built for like any lesbian identifying person, and it really kind of changed the way that I like understood anything about an archive, because it was really just like, my sister was like, you know, queer, closeted for her entire life. She passed. Here's a box of all of her stuff, and it's anywhere from like journals to photographs to, you know, mixtapes, and it really kind of made me understand that nothing is unimportant and that everything has its place, and it's because you give it meaning, it has that. And the preservation of that is so incredibly important. And I think for the future, I don't know, I think taking that and thinking about that and understanding that, like, I feel like I get a lot of questions about my work, about, you know, other people being like, I want to start an archive and I don't know where to start. And it's kind of like, you just do it. You just make up your own filing system and you scan it and you make sure you have it and you make sure, you know, you're abiding by some kind of like archivist standards the best that you can, that I try to do. And I mean, I'm still going through my archive. I'm like halfway done with scanning it, and then I still have to, you know, go through all of that and rename it. But I think it is a little scary, because I think for me, it's like, you know, the internet disappears. It's like, where do all of these things go? Where are they stored? Yeah, and I think that there are so many different, you know, scary things that can happen, but also it's like, you can have 3 hard drives in different places with all of those things. But yeah, I don't know. I think the future of the archive is becoming more prevalent and more accessible, and I'm really into that. Yeah.
I don't remember the first time I decided to use an archive in my work. I do remember being a student and going to the New Museum in New York, and there was a show called The Collectors, and it was about artists and their collections and the stuff that they collect. And I remember having a moment where I thought, I collect a lot of stuff too. And it's mostly photographs. And I think that what excited me most about archives was how patterns begin to reveal themselves as you look through them in their histories. And that felt like a powerful tool to use in the studio and in my own work. The future of archives, I don't know, maybe unpopular opinion, but I think it's quite exciting that archives have become so digitized that we're able to visit colleges and university library systems through their websites and see some of their collection, and that might save me a trip. Not that I don't want to make that trip, but I mean, you know, earlier we were talking about Tulane and how Tulane has this very rich United Fruit Company archive, and I would love to go in person, and I plan to. So I'll see you in New Orleans, Chris. But until then, you know, looking through their library system has been really great. But, you know, living and working in Greater Boston, I'm also able to look through college and university archives that are available there. So, you know, I'm excited for the potential, but if the internet does shut off, then I don't know. Then I need to go find my white gloves.
Yeah, the archive future is all about metadata and the library science of dealing with these things. And I know a few friends who are doing this, and it is a really exciting moment. Absolutely. But us visual artists are like, we need a higher resolution than screen size. So like, where do we need to go to get that? So that's the only worry about the digital archive.
Scanning TIFF files.
Yeah, you need some Photoshop, some TIFF files.
Photography is alive and well. I love it. Thank you so much. I realized while hearing about the archives, thinking about the archives, this idea of the archive being one of our collaborators is also a perfect segue to something that I wanted to ask about as well. As we discussed, Hank's practice is so collaborative. All of us are here because we've spent time in the studio with Hank. And I wanted to ask, could you speak on your time in the studio, if there was a particular project that you remember really being focused on, and how some of that time infiltrated your individual studio practice?
Sure.
I love how we've just become, you are the first one every time, just right down the line. Yeah.
Well, go with the old dog in the group. I've been working with Hank for 20 years, so we have like a shorthand, brotherly love language. I don't know where Hank's work ends and mine begins at this point in a way that's good. I think we both like to blur boundaries of everything, as chaotic as that can be. And I would say even the last 6 to 8 years where Hank's work has moved into this like way more process, like it's conceptual at its start, but there's so much more of a process to it, and it's more of a layered experience, and that has just been really fun to dig into that way, get off the computer screen where I had been a little bit more. So I just have days where I don't even see a computer, and at the studio I just crank out tunes or listen to a book about the Luddite rebellion or whatever else I was doing at the time. So I don't really know where it ends and begins, but I just feel like it's we both love an archive and digging into it and dealing both with like trying to say something that has a clear thing, but also accepting the complexity and messiness of trying to find a clean narrative in a very messy and chaotic world that has no overarching logic, as far as I can tell.
Have you found that you've spent less time on the computer and more hands-on in the studio? Have you noticed that same pattern reflected in your personal practice?
Well, yeah, so the piece that is in the show, literally I was in between studio spaces and I made this in Hank's studio, which was really great to be able to do. And I do feel like I've started to recognize that we both produce figures and shapes out of groupings of things, and so we're like making images with images with images in a way that I'm just recognizing that's the case, and I'm way less, Hank was always like, get off the computer, both for my work and for what we were doing, and he was right the whole time. So as it turns out, getting off the computer, cutting some paper, throwing some paint around is an essential starting point at the very least.
Yeah, I started at the studio when I was 19. I'm 28 now. So I've been in and out of the studio for a really, really long time, and I, as a very, very young artist, only kind of knew Hank's photography that, I'm still, taken aback with even to this day. And I remember Will actually being like, he's not doing any photographs, so that's not what we're doing here. And I was like, that's fine. And I was just like really excited and honored to be there, and I learned so much about not only like being in a studio and working with an artist of his caliber, but what it meant to work communally, right? And I think what was always so wonderful about being in the studio is that there were so many different hands within the work that was being done, rather it was, the research behind it or, his real acceptance to take whatever other people were saying and thinking. But also, kind of like on a practical level, like I started screen printing because I was in the studio when that was happening, and it was really a wonderful time and a wonderful moment for me to be like, oh, like photography doesn't have to be so stagnant. Like photography can actually be all of these other things. It can be screen printing, it can be mixed media, it can be all these other things. And thinking about how his practice is always so well informed, I feel like takes a lot from an archive, but I think he like takes it a step more, and that kind of taught me so much, so much as a young artist. And then still having the support now as like an older emerging artist, has really shaped the way that I like walk through this really crazy, silly art world for sure.
I remember too, you were a fellow at the Lower East Side print shop.
I had an internship that I absolutely got because Hank was like, hire her.
It was so perfect because we'd had you in the studio, and then we came to the Lower East Side print shop for screen printing, and then Andina was there.
Yeah,
and we're
all
like,
of a
oh,
sudden.
perfect.
It was great, yeah.
So yeah, I started interning in Hank's studio between undergrad and grad school. And that was a super formative time. My undergrad experience at SVA was one that was geared more toward, you're a commercial artist, you need an elevator pitch, what does your website look like, what do your business cards look like? And my time at Hunter was not like that. My time at Hunter was like, where's the conceptual through line of your work? And being in Hank's studio in that period, I got to witness a lot of that. There's practical parts of being an artist, which is how do you keep the lights on? But then also, how do you make work that is important to you? And if you care deeply about it, then other people will care also. And those are some things that really stuck out to me. I remember when he was working on a century, the Unbranded series, A Century of White Women. There was a period where I was looking through books and media and putting little sticky notes every time a photo stuck out to me. And then someone else would get that edit. And then it would get refined over time. And many hands were in that culling process. And it was so important for me to see so many different voices and perspectives in that culling of the archive and in that project. And I also got to see artists making things in the studio. So that was just a really formative experience, getting to be around other artists and other thinkers in Hank's studio.
Shout out to Jessica Lancaster for doing so much work on that
Just
project.
gonna do the same thing. She's in the back
There
row.
you are.
Of course you are. Perfect.
Are your fingers still tired from all the photoshopping?
Actually, this is I was going to take a page out of Hank's book. The other artists that are in the show or people who have worked in the studio, can you please stand up right now? Because I know there's more of you in this room. Yeah. Okay, this is all of our time, but I really quickly am going to slip in one more thing. As we know, we are in the 250th year of this country, and our show is called Looking for America. Can you quickly give me one line on what Looking for America means to you?
I'm not going. Take it away.
I really kept to the hard one for the end.
That's a tough one, right? That's a tough one because we are in a hyper-polarized moment, and it's not to say that that hasn't been the case historically, but I do think that it's a very painful time for a lot of communities. And I think looking for America is really looking for your community, because it's through, I think, community that we make coalition. And through coalition is how we're going to get through some of these really difficult historic moments.
What she said. Yeah, I love that. I feel like for me, it's like America is kind of this horrible beast, but America is like there's so much culture that can be called American, and that is the America that I tether to, like drive-in movie theaters, things like just like the Americana, but also just the getting to know people and the ground up stuff and supporting workers, and finding your community and supporting other people who are not at the top.
I think I feel really lucky to have grown up where I did, because for me, New York is America. As far as the many, many walks of life that occupy that city that I love so much. And I agree with you both about community, but I also think it's a word that has been co-opted in spaces where it's like your community is not your friends, right? Like your community is the houseless person that you overlook every single time you take the train. Community is, the food insecure people that, live in a neighborhood that you now occupy. And I think more than anything, we have to really think about what that word means, because it's not always people that look like you, and it's not always people that have experiences like you. But we have a lot more in common than they would like us to think. And that because, maybe our direct kind of identities don't mirror each other, doesn't necessarily mean that we're not in this big bad fight together. So, yeah.
We're in it together, for sure. Thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely hope that you come see the show, but also follow these artists everywhere you can possibly follow them. And please hang tight while we rearrange chairs and invite Devon and Hank to the stage. All right, thank you, everyone. We have more, but wait, there's more. Oh, could we have the next slide, please? Oh, I thought we were getting a drum roll there for a second. I was like, yes, let's do the drum roll. Perfect. Thank you for staying with us as we hear from Devon, my lovely co-curator of Looking for America at the Algonquin Museum of American Art, and my lovely everyday collaborator, Hank Willis Thomas, who I feel neither of you really need an introduction, so I'm just here to hand the stage off to the stars.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Great job, Helen. That was really great to see you all speak, and humbling.
It was a joy. And I am stepping in. Kalia Brooks, our wonderful, the third member of the incredible curatorial team who put together this exhibition, couldn't make it this evening. So I am stepping in on her behalf and get the joy and pleasure and privilege of speaking with you, Hank. And Kalia did want me to start with a question, though, which is, Hank, why are you here?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
I'm here to introduce you to the people who just stood up. So can they come down? Jessica and Will and Christina and Aaliyah, you're not moving.
Come on down.
Come down. Who else is here? Sam, stop hiding. Come down into the
Sam.
light. People standing up in the dark, come down. Yes, you. You know who I'm talking to. Yes, you. I want to invite a few people to come down, and you, the guy in the main shirt, come into the light. Come into the light. The
Joe,
guy
come on
in the main
over.
shirt.
Are you coming, Joe?
Is there a guy here wearing a main shirt? Yeah, come down. Come up into the light,
Joan.
please. Please come into the light. The lights onto the stage. Please.
Joan, you're coming down too.
And wait, Chris, where's Chris? And all the people who just came, where are you? Where's everyone? Are you using the bathroom? Yes, that's you with the main shirt. Wait, come.
Come on up.
No, come
Here,
on up.
Joan, let me help you up.
Oh wait, well you got to come up. Why? You're the reason I'm really here. So let's start there. Thank you. Good to see you. So you can explain why I'm here.
It is true.
Yes. This is a family affair. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, Devon. Hi, folks. I think we have one more. Is Bill White here? Come on down. I'm Joan White. I grew up in Algonquin. And and a member of the Algonquin Museum, which is why Hank is here.
For how long have you been a member?
Oh, well, paid or unpaid? Never mind that, but I've been in Algonquin 83 years. So,
And how did you want it here?
my mother worked for some of the people you call rich, and they are scattered about Algonquin and all. And they were fishermen, and that was my thing. My mother told me to go find something to do, so I went to Perkins Cove and started lobstering with the fishermen. Okay, that's it.
But then you said I should do a show here.
So, can I jump in?
Yes.
Joan comes up to me, or sends an email to us and Amanda, who was our director at the time, and says, hey, I'm going to a family event, and I think my Aunt Deb and cousin Hank are going to be there.
My cousins, they're cousins.
Cousins. And I was, Joan, are you saying Deborah Willis and Hank Willis Thomas? She's like, yeah. Let's get them to talk. So that began this entire project and introduced the museum to the incredible group of people who are on stage, the incredible community that you have built around.
Thank you, and I'm so grateful. So Cousin Joan, it's funny because we don't always call our cousins cousins, but Cousin Joan, our family is quite large. Aunt Jo immigrated from Virginia, and to be
Home of Zachary Taylor.
yeah, but to be here, to be introduced to this museum and to be invited to collaborate with so many of my colleagues on a show is a really, really special event, because to think about your mother coming here 80 years ago and planting a seed, and then kind of us being part of that fruit is really wonderful.
I'm shy. I didn't know I was coming up. Her mom, Aunt Jo, and my grandfather are brother and sister. So I'm part of the family. I knew Hank and Hank's mom and Hank's granddad. And I used to come up to Algonquin with Joan when I was a kid with my brother. And we used to go to Peaks Island from Portland, Maine and all that. So I sort of grew up here, and I'm happy to be here and happy to see Hank and see the exhibit.
Thank you. And so I guess why I'm here, I've been blessed to be a part of a community and a family of people who, that is grounded in love. And when I think about looking for America, America is us, right? America is the invitation to everyone to be a part of something that's bigger and better than all of us individually. And when I get to, I am a big fan of America. I realize that one thing that we don't see enough in the art is pledging allegiance. And there's the line is specifically, united we stand, divided we fall. is so important to me when I think about what it means to be here. And so when we talk about these divided times, I think it's almost acknowledging how un-American we've become. And not to say that the unity feels good, but acknowledging that the tension is part of what makes us who we are is what I love. And Will has enjoyed a lot of the tension on my behalf. So I was going to just pass the mic to the different individuals and ask them to talk about, why they're here. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Why am I here? Well, I think I do have artwork in the show, but I'm also the second. My name is Will Sylvester. Hi. From New York. Thank you. And I'm the second longest running studio member. I've been in the studio for like maybe 15 years now. And I'm still there as studio director. I think, it's been a long road. Me and Hank have known each other for 40 years? 41 years now. We lived in the same neighborhood in New York City. And so, it's sort of a long-winded story of how I'm here, but I think more importantly, just being a part of this community and this group of artists and curators and, just human beings is just, how we got here. And I think we continue to be here because of the love and the community that we share.
You know me already.
But you gotta go now.
You've all met me. You know why I'm here.
Why are you here?
I'm here because I had the opportunity to create this gorgeous show around this gorgeous community.
Hi, I'm Christina Caputo, and I work as studio manager at Hank Willis Thomas Studio at the moment. But I met Hank in 2008 while working at Aperture Foundation. And it was kind of my first real job, and it was my first time working with real artists. And I went on my first business trip on a book tour with Hank to the Henry Museum in Seattle, and I fell in love with the work he was doing and the message he was putting out in the world. And years later, after a career kind of working in marketing and communications and in film, I came back to the art world in 2020. And at the very beginning of the year, as the wild world was changing, and got to be back in community, but in practice with a lot of these wonderful people. And I'm here to celebrate Helen and all the hard work you've put into this show, and Hank's family. And I'm happy to be here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Russell Craig, and why am I here is a little complex, so I'm gonna try to not to make it too long, but I would say to support Hank, because Hank has always been supportive of me. I'm an visual artist from Philadelphia. How I got here, like specifically, the Rose Museum just acquired, and I'm an artist now, I'm a visual artist, and the Rose Museum acquired one of my pieces, and once we got, and I'm here with Will, who represents me in Florida at Clubhouse Gallery. Once we heard that Hank had a thing, we drove to Maine. We had a reason, like, we're going to Maine and we're going to go support Hank, because he just always supported me. When I was inside of prison, I did 12 years in prison, and 7 of those, not straight, but the last 7, I was wrongfully convicted. And when I was inside, I was having these like visions or dreams to being an artist, and I would like look at Hank's work. And then I got out, and shortly after that, like a year being out, I had a show at the Democratic National Convention. The ancestors and God I'm not Christian and all that, but like I've been blessed by God. I seriously have been blessed by God, And for some reason, while I was looking at Hank's work in prison, God and the ancestors brought us together, and he was like, hey, how you doing at the Democratic National Convention? And I'm like, whoa, like in the flesh. Like, so he wasn't digging it. He just saw some cool stuff like, hey, how you? And I'm like, whoa, it's crazy. Like, I've been reading about you for a number of years, and ever since we met, he's been like supportive. So I asked for a letter of recommendation recently. I won't tell y'all what it's for, but he was like, sure. So it was like, once I heard he was out here, we drove an hour or so from Boston. Oh yeah, I just moved. I'm originally from Philly. I spent 7 years in New York. Agnes Gunn had discovered me, and my art career is doing pretty decent. But before Agnes even found me, Hank was showing me love. So I'm always gonna be there for Hank, no matter what, forever. So that's why I'm here.
I'm Sarah Hames. I'm here also for the same reason that everybody else is here. I've had the joy of collaborating with Hank. I used to work at Four Freedoms. We worked out of the studio, so I didn't work specifically with the studio, but had the joy of wreaking havoc and causing distraction for everybody that was working in there whenever I was there, doing programming and partnerships for Four Freedoms, which is this amazing organization that Hank is a co-founder of, getting artists involved in the political conversation. And what? Oh, okay. I'm here today because I split my time between Maine and New York, and when I heard that Hank was gonna have a show at this museum, I've been hounding Helen for years and years to tell me when exactly things were happening. So, very grateful to be here and be on this stage and, collaborate with all of these incredible people. I met Hank for the first time also at Aperture Foundation, which was my first not real job. I was an intern fresh out of college, and we did a studio visit with Hank, and that was in 2015. And then when did I start at Four Freedoms? I think 2023. So like 8 years later, we've known each other and been happy to be in rooms together since then, but you reminded me that we met for the first time in 2015, and I was blown away that happened. And that you were called, knowing me as a little intern. Okay, anyway, on to the amazing Sam.
Thank you. I'm Sam Geritani, and I am here because Helen and Devon asked me to do the mural that's outside of the museum. And I saw it for the first time today. And I did the mural because in Hank's studio, I manage all of his large-scale public artwork, and it's a labor of love, and I love everything that I do in public art, especially for Hank's studio. And yeah, I'm not... What's happening this week? Oh, we're working on it. I also represent other artists because in 2020, when the world shut down, I decided to open a business. And I help other artists manage large-scale public artwork. And I help Nikisha Durrett, who is currently in Chicago at the moment, putting on the finishing touches of her sculpture that's going into the Obama Presidential Center on Juneteenth this year. And I do all the behind the scenes, so I'm her, through Hank. So Hank had a project with Nikisha in Miami back in 2018, and Hank said, Sam, you need to call Nikisha, she needs help. So I said, okay. So I called Nikisha, I said, hey, I'm Sam. I'm, working at Hank's studio, and I'm here to help you behind the scenes. And she's like, no, I'm good. I'm good, I don't need your help. And I said, okay, cool. Well, if you need anything, just call me. But she eventually needed my help. So I've been also working with her since 2018. And yeah.
I told you I like to talk, and we're all giving Hank love for his style of bringing us all together, but he's actually learned that from his mother, who brought me into Hank's life. I was an undergrad, she was my teacher, I had graduated, and she said, oh, I need help moving my studio, and it was actually Hank's studio. And then I've been working with him for 20 years ever since, and it's great. And I am also here in part because one of my very oldest friends, Jules Garter's family is here, and I didn't know they were gonna be here, so it's just like the first time I ever came to Maine. Yeah, please stand up if you can. These are that tall, handsome man. And he's wearing a Hank shirt. That's right. That's right. We're plugging the merch.
How I got to the studio? No. My name is Adam Easterling. Why I'm here, I have work in the group show with all these wonderful people. I met Hank in 2018 in the winter, I've done so many random things, I think, working for Hank, like all kinds of design or fabrication, and it's been a really cool lesson in collaboration across the board. I get to work with a lot of really cool artists, and it's when I think back, I was just talking to Hector about a piece that I may have seen around the studio, but never in person. But there's a big variety in the types of things that we make and the types of people I meet. But I recently had a solo show open 3 weeks ago, my first solo show. I made some large-scale versions of the piece that I have in the Ogunquit show. Bubble Wrap works with lights, and it's been cool making stuff like that. If you're in New York this weekend, I'm having the closing reception. It's in Bushwick at the Active Space Gallery. I'm going to be there on Sunday. I have zines that I've been designing that are also printed on bubble wrap, and other design projects that I've done that are going to be showcased there in that space as well. So that's all I got.
Is the question, why am I here?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, I've got work in the show, and how I got here, I remember I was interning at MoMA, and that internship was wrapping up, and I was looking for a meaningful place to be after that, and I emailed Hank's studio from my @moma.org email address, and that's what opened the door, and then I walked through it, and I'd like to think that that experience has still been carrying me ever since.
Oh man, I hate public speaking. No, I'll do it from here though. Hi, I'm Jessica Frances Gregoire Lancaster. I have work in the show as well. I met Hank in 2014 as a really, really grumpy intern. And probably the worst production manager. I left in 2016. I went to grad school and made a lot of really bad work for a year. And I sat there one day and was like, maybe I'll try painting on glass. And I got that because I worked at Hank's studio making his mirrors with him. And that summer we did that together. I mean, the eye rolling I was doing and the attitude, and I'm sorry. But I sat down in my studio in grad school and painted on glass for the first time. And it was like seeing the world in color for the first time. I thought I was going to be a photographer in life, and I have a painting practice now, and that's all because of Hank. I have a solo show at Trotter and Scholler in the Lower East Side in New York City. It closes June 6th. And I have another solo show coming up, dates to be determined, in early December at United Contemporary in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. My name is Jessica Frances Gregoire Lancaster.
Hello again. I'm here because I began my internship at Hank's studio when I was 19. But something I've been thinking about today is I'm reflecting a lot now that I have a fully developed brain, is I've been thinking a lot about my undergraduate senior thesis. and thinking about how the entire studio, Hank, Helen, Will, Adam, I think you were there, I met Aaliyah for the first time, came that night, which was also the same night your wife had curated the Whitney Biennial. And they came to my thesis first that night, which is really wonderful, and a really, you know, I think I had only been at the studio for maybe a year at that point, but the support that you guys had showed me then still carries on today, and how honored and lucky I feel to walk in your legacy, because I am one of 17 artists in the Studio Museum Fade Show, which is their like sort of emerging artist show, and Hank was in that same emerging artist show 21 years ago. So yeah, that's why I am here. Oh, my great shirt. I have to go in the front. I haven't worn it yet, but I figured today was a good day to show up. Yeah, the lenticular shirt. So, working for a different artist. I was Tyler Mitchell's studio manager for a while, and I think he got 2 in the mail, and I got this one. I was lucky enough to get this shirt, so first time, yeah.
I'm not gonna go in the front. Hi, my name is Aaliyah Nimmons. I started working with Hank in 2019, so it's been a few years, maybe not as long as everybody, but as Andina just mentioned, the first day that I met her was at her senior thesis, and that was also my first day in Hank's studio and witnessing all the community that he has to offer and that he likes to cultivate. So yes, I'm an art critic, writer, and I also have a photo practice.
Thank you. Yeah. You get some more.
Hank.
Well, and then I do want to just say to you, Devon, why are you here?
I am here because of an art history professor 20 years ago, my daughter who was born during the pandemic that brought me to New England, and then the discovery of a museum that builds community that I hope one day will build a community as remotely as beautiful as the one that you have here on stage.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
Can I ask you a question about these amazing folks?
Yes.
What is it like having your work on view with them and in dialogue with them?
Well, it's amazing. It's simply amazing. It's great to be, I mean, what I learned from, so my mother's name is Deborah Willis. She's an art historian and curator. And my grandfather's name is Thomas Willis, and his cousin Joe, and cousin Joan. Like, my mother grew up, like my grandfather would go visit family. It was very important for all of the Willises and the Whites to get together, whether from Virginia all the way to Maine to Philadelphia. And this idea of keeping us together and showing up for one another is so important. And it's very difficult for me to see myself as not part of a larger community. So even in my studio practice, do I need all these amazing people to make something? No. But can I make anything without them? No. And there's this way in which it doesn't feel but so worth it to be an artist if I can't be part of someone else's life or growth, hopefully in a positive way. And hopefully, and I think on some level, it's so great to get to acknowledge Aunt Jo here, who died at 103. What year was that? Yeah, so after 9/11. So, but who was just a couple generations away from the slave trade in the United States. See, you don't want the microphone, but you're about to give us.
Oh, hi. Hank, do you remember, did I give you your first camera? I think so, in my bedroom in Ardmore, which was my mother's home. And I was going through my cameras when you and your mother came and wanted to know what I was doing. And I said, well, I don't want this one. You want it? And you said, yeah. What was the subject? Well, Mom's history is really great because, like I said, we come from Orange, Virginia, but what I said was Zach Taylor country, who was, what, the 12th president of the United States or something like that. In our family, we had a very, very talented family, lots of artists, vocal, singers and musicians. And Hank has a cousin who is on like him. She sat down at the piano at the age of 2 and played by ear a German lieder song her mother had just practiced. And Hank's mother, Debbie, Hank didn't say that she's chair of imaging and photography at New York University and has written 40 books. So what he knows, he gets naturally. And I think everybody in the family was involved in the arts. I can't think of many who aren't.
Well, thank you. So in case you didn't ever wonder, I've always wanted to be Merv Griffin. This is my art practice. How you doing? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. So Devon, what's our next? You see how they ran off stage before we got to take the group
I
picture?
noticed that.
I'm like, all right.
They ran as quickly as they could. Told me to hold down the fort, which I'm welcome to. My consummate curatorial nature is to try to do a good transition then into the next question.
Yes. Are you ready for the next one?
I am.
There's like a good 80 more people here to come on stage.
But it brings, just having all these folks in the crowd, all these conversations and all these stories, and it makes me think of, just sharing the microphone and stepping into a voice and speaking. And one of the works that we have on view right now is Black Righteous Space. And I wanted to maybe learn a little more about how that project came into being and what your experiences have been seeing that work as it invites visitors to step in and lend their voice. And I think this was a model of how stepping forward and giving voice is so much part of your practice, but how have you interacted with folks visiting the museum or a museum when that work was installed?
Well, so the piece you're mentioning, Black Righteous Space, is a interactive video work where the design of the Confederate flag is utilized as a tool to amplify the voices of African American and Afro-Caribbean orators, soul speakers, I don't know how to call it, but using the colors of the United Negro, UNIA, United Negro, Marcus Garvey's, did it. What's UNIA stand for? Someone Google it. It's funny. So Marcus Garvey's United Negro something association, Improvement Association, thank you, which was also known as the Back to Africa movement, which was kind of one of the early 20th century black liberation movements where Marcus Garvey, Afro-Caribbean person, wanted to kind of create a home that was a safe place for African Americans, and had this idea of creating a Black Star Line, a ship that could take us home. And this idea that he was one of the many inspirations of so many people, especially Bob Marley, but also Malcolm X, and a lot of the voices that we heard throughout the 20th century. And there's this idea of a black righteous space, a space that is not reserved specifically for African Americans, in my opinion, or Afro-Caribbeans or quote-unquote black people, but there's a space that's reserved for a truth that comes from an enlightened suffering that is almost undeniable. And Will Sylvester here, who is good at, he likes to be mix or fix it, but he doesn't want to acknowledge it. I come to ideas and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Can you do it? And he's like, I don't know how to do it either. I'm like, great, I'll see you later. And so he figured out how to make a program that could be voice reactive to these speeches that I was interested in. And so it turns the Confederate flag into this kaleidoscope that amplifies these voices that it was likely created to silence. And that's part of how the studio works, where like I got many good ideas, and you know how good a good idea is, how much that's worth. And what's really lovely about these experiences is being able to see. I rarely look at the work and be like, oh, that was all me, you know. And projects like Four Freedoms and another project, Question Bridge, or In Search of the Truth Booth. I love to work collaboratively, and I've had to learn about American authorship and the kind of and hero thing as a way to kind of participate in the world. And so even that piece is elevating the voices of other people and highlighting that. But I see reality as a collaboration. None of us have ever truly been alone. And that's not the way, that doesn't mean that we don't feel it. I feel it often. But I also am inspired to remind myself that, in fact, there are people who walked before me that have blazed the path that I am constantly intersecting with, whether conscious of it or not.
That dependence or interreliance, entanglement with like everyone around us came in all of our conversations during the project. I feel like the amount of folks who were saying, I was tinkering with something in Hank's studio, or I was doing some sort of experiment in Hank's studio and that birthed this, or I was working with some material in your studio. And that like idea about material experimentation, and the show is filled with it, the retroreflective works, and to all of the other practices from Adam's UV printing on bubble wrap to Jessica talking about her reverse glass painting. How do you, like in that collaborative spirit, how do you work through thinking through those material questions outside of maybe calling Will and saying, how do we make this work?
Yeah, like similar to making mirrors. You know, I know how to make mirrors. Chris doesn't mind I had throat cancer, so I mean, I was like, we were doing this, and I remember we were making these, and Jessica was there too. We were making these. So, and Jessica, you still smoke? You don't? Okay, good. We were making these mirrors, and we don't acknowledge, like everyone has a mirror in their house, right? But we don't think about the actual complicated, beautiful and amazing, but profound process that goes through to make mirrors, but it's also toxic. And I was like, let me try to make mirrors. And then, but I do remember, I never said this to you, like I was in that second studio we had on 39th Street, and I was like, my throat really hurts. And I was like, I should stop doing this. And that's what I tried to get you to stop doing it, but you're like, because the thing is, like, there's a lot of photographers that like live really, really long, and I'm like, it's because they kind of got an immunity to toxic chemicals.
Like a Mick Jagger kind of level of toxicity.
That was my theory. Yeah. But then I got throat cancer, and I was like, oops, I guess I missed that one. But I appear to be okay. I have a nice little scar here. But this is also a lot of family members. Cancer has run in my family. But I've also, survival of cancer is often run in my family. And part of also this idea of none of us are going to live forever. Mm-hmm. And I think what every artist wants to do is make something that will outlive them. Yeah. And that tinkering, that engagement, that collaboration, the risk taking, whether it be literal risk taking or and Adam also, just for the record, he likes to work in a room with this machine that they say is okay, and I'm always trying to get him not work in the room, but now he's making his art with it. Because one of the things I do want to say, as I've gotten older, it's amazing to be a grown-up when I met, these people are, they've had careers 15, 20 years, and I got to meet them when they were kids. And a lot of times, I mean, we do have health insurance, but a lot of times there wasn't health insurance. Chris, Eric, Will, how much, I love that story. Got to do it. Just say, what was your first, yes.
I don't need the microphone. I can just take the microphone. Okay, I'll take the microphone. Hank loves to talk about how. So I came to the studio twice. Once was in 2008 to work on Question Bridge Black Males and sort of be a PA, and they also needed my car. And then again to also work on Question Bridge Black Males, but in 2011, right? Yeah. Where I was living actually in Massachusetts, and they needed an editor. And actually my background's in documentary film and editing. And basically I came down with a bag full of some clothes, and as I was working on this thing, just for a little extra help, they were like, hey, can you stay? And I was like, sure. But I don't have a place to live, and I need money. And so the offer to work on Question Bridge Black Males was $100 a week and a Metro card, and a couch either on our collaborator, Baite Ross Smith's, my cousin, on his couch in his studio apartment, or on the couch in the actual studio. So that's what I did for about I think I did it for about a year, actually. And then I finally got an apartment in Brooklyn and made the move permanent.
And I think I say that because we can't pretend that being an artist or working with an artist is not precarious. It's cute at the opening, right, when everyone gets dressed nice and go places and act like that's all that it is. But people believe, not only the gallerists, Ben, I don't know if Joanna's here, Ben Strauss Malcolm, stand up from Pace Galleries here, and Joanna from Jack Shaman Gallery, and there's a lot of risk-taking and suffering and belief and faith that people could put into making art and helping artists make art. And so, and my thing is in the engagement of being do you want to live on the couch in the studio for a year and make $100 a week? And then to be 15 years later, and I don't know, you're going to almost every continent this year, I think, on my dime, and making six figures, which is pretty good. And health insurance still could be better. I feel bad about that, but the fact that this idea of belief and investment in me, and that I hope I can honor you and Helen and everyone else. And the work that I do, and especially my mom and my family. But it's never as simple as the actual, that's just a reason for us to play together, right? And the joy that I think I get from being this is kind of weird and crazy, and do you want to do this? And Chris works really hard, and then he's like, I hate these people, I'm gone. And then comes back 6 weeks later, is hey, what are we doing? but it's this idea of being in a family and working. It's my thing about family, what I always say is you don't have to like your family, but you have to love them.
Yeah.
And this idea that we can disagree, we can have challenges, we can come back together, and we can look at what we did together and always be yeah, this is what it really means, and that's how, and the fact that my mother nurtured you into my life makes you, like a brother to me. And so I know you have other questions, but.
No, I want to take that and say, in a similar vein, working at a small nonprofit, we do a lot of crazy things with an incredibly small team. Ellie Sapat, who's out front, is managed this night incredibly well. our registrar Nina Maurer and Nell, and our collections manager Andy Rizzo, Ryan Adams and Rachel Adams, who helped execute the mural. Our gardeners John and Carol, who did such beautiful work.
30 years?
30 years at the museum. And again, it's not often spoken, artists take risks all the time. Working at a small nonprofit, you put a big bet into the community in a show like this of working together, and there's something that I feel like is always understated, and I always try to say, is the generosity of artists. I don't think it's ever properly recognized consistently of how much artists are asked for by museums, how much they give, how much they work through and dedicate, all again with that risk that's put forward. And I think, on that note of the generosity of artists, I do hope that for you all who have generously spent your time here today, come up to the museum and see the incredible work by everyone who's been on stage, look into the work that everyone who's been on stage who may not be in the show, and just begin to pull the threads that is Hank's studio and family, and hopefully the museum as well that might be a small part of it.
And also support this museum because I think it's so awesome. I love to be here because Maine is like the secret weapon of the United States as far as like great places to be. I spent a lot of time in Mount Desert, a little bit of time in Skowhegan, and every time I'm here, I feel healed. It's something about like being on the edge of the continent, and the history, the legacy, that's here, the energy, and to have places like this with these like Philip Guston, Rashid Johnson, these incredible artists, Jack Whitten. Like it's just how lucky, and like you don't have to like go through a crowd of like all these people in your way, and like it's just here. So thank you for your efforts and your work, and I'm just really grateful to David and to everyone, and thank you all for bearing witness to this awkward but hopefully fun and sweet moment.
Thank you.